Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Insurance Journal's Academy of Insurance's weekly webinar after show. I'm your host, George, and joining me for the after show today is the director of the Academy of Insurance, Mr. Patrick Raitt, and our instructors for today's course. Today's class was Nuclear Verdicts, Social Inflation, and Why They Matter to the Insurance World. And our instructors are Laura Gregory and Tim Fletcher. Laura and Tim. Welcome to the after show. I beg your pardon. How are you today? Then thank you very much again for your time and help today, and you can answer those thoughts and questions in no particular order.
Well, I'm good. It's a nice day in Boston, and always enjoy spending an hour or so with Tim talking about social inflation and shock verdicts and where they're going and where we've come from. Yeah, interesting stuff, at least to me. But I'm a self-proclaimed insurance nerd, so.
Well, likewise, and one of the great joys for me over the last couple of years is getting connected with Laura. I think, Laura, you and I got connected. I think I spoke on this subject at a CPCU meeting online, and then we connected.
During the pandemic.
During the pandemic. And it's been fun to, compare notes, share thoughts on, an issue that's really, really a problem here for the industry. And it's amazing to me every day, the amounts that we're seeing thrown out there. It's incredible. So,
Tim, you kind of answered one of my questions. I think you've already answered it. Was how did you and Laura come to meet and or collaborate? And was it the CPCU Society or?
It was. Tim did a similar presentation by himself on, I think it was the Rhode Island CPCU meeting, which I watched, and then I was working with a group, the Insurance and Reinsurance Bar Association in Massachusetts, and suggested that this would be a good topic for their annual symposium. So I reached out to Tim and asked if he'd be interested in doing something. And so in the end, Tim, me, a defense attorney, also from Georgia, and a reinsurance guy from the Hartford, did a panel in person back in April of 2022. I think one of the first in-person things that I had done. And then we've done a few more since then, and there's been, bigger and bigger numbers over the last. It hasn't even been a year, and we keep seeing bigger numbers eclipse the last big number.
That's wonderful. And Tim, does Laura ever kind of poke fun about the Falcons and the Patriots comeback win against them in the Super Bowl several years ago?
Full disclosure, I'm a long-suffering Minnesota Viking fan. So
Vikings, oh my, okay.
But for a time, long time ago, I lived in Boston, and one of the fun things for me in getting acquainted with Laura is I've now had 2 trips back to Boston. One for the Reinsurance Bar Association meeting she talked about, but then also we did this talk for the CPCU annual meeting in Boston. So that was really cool. So.
Yeah, and that was a few days after Massachusetts had its first big verdict. We had, I think it was 58 million against Philip Morris, lung cancer death. So we had thought we were a little bit protected in Massachusetts, but no. So, though I do think Philip Morris is probably a particularly challenging defendant to
deal with. I'll ask one more non-insurance question. So Concord, New Hampshire is where I'm from, and we're sort of a Bruins Red Sox town. What is Andover? Is it Celtics Bruins right now because of how great they're both doing, or what's Andover?
Well, I would say among my friends, it's definitely, well, really all three. Everyone's kind of down on the Patriots lately. Ever since Tom Brady left, it hasn't been the same. So we're focusing on everybody else. I have several friends who are big Bruins fans, so they've probably had more influence on me. And I grew up in Kansas and had no exposure to hockey at all, so I've been learning.
Gotcha. Thank you. You talked about emerging risks toward the end of the talk about nuclear verdicts and emerging risks that contribute potentially to cases that lead to nuclear verdicts. You said you cited a bunch of risks that were increasing by the day. Are there any risks that you think may or may not be contributing in the long run to nuclear verdicts that weren't touched on in the talk, or what do you think?
Well, I think one of the things that I'd like to spend more time researching is sort of these underlying societal factors that are driving these awards. Just is, citizen, concerned about the future of America. I just feel like things are different, and that sense of community that I think once existed in our society feels different. And I'm concerned about how polarized we are as a society on all these issues. And I'm going forward, I'm just very, very concerned about that. And I just wonder really how and where it all ends. I'm kind of rambling here, but that's a concern I have. And then the other thing I just wanted to say also is, there are a number of things we talked about that make up social inflation, but what's happening with respect to microplastics, PFAS, it seems like every day there's a new toxin that we're being made aware of. And I think the scary thing about it is that we just don't know. And a lot of what I do, I'm undergrads in journalism, so the beauty of what I get to do, I get to read and write all day. And what I'm starting to see also, climate change, what's that going to mean for our society? Not only survival of humanity, I think we'll ultimately get through, but could there be some other exposures down the road on the liability side that we need to be concerned about with respect to perhaps architects and engineers not designing buildings with the thought to withstand climate change and the effects of these increasingly intense storms we have? So there are a lot of things out there that kind of get thrown into the mix that I think about every day, along with a lot of other people. So
I think that social media, I'd like to see some studies on the impact of social media on people's views on things like this, because I think that particularly, I don't know, I spend most of my social media time on LinkedIn, and I don't think LinkedIn is as much like this, but certainly Facebook and I think Instagram as well kind of feed you the things that are consistent with what you're already looking at. And so that you don't get different viewpoints. And there's certainly, it would be interesting to know the sort of Facebook history or whatever social media history of the jurors that are reaching these big verdicts, or if, is it, I don't know if we have enough information because jury information is held very close generally, but for example, I wonder how much data we have on the juries. Like, are these juries usually older people, younger people? Is there a mix? We know that a lot of these cases, say in Georgia, have come out of the rural counties. But there was that big case against CVS that was in Atlanta, I think, or the metro.
In Atlanta, the negligent security case, yep.
Which was a crazy case. Basically, CVS was found not to have adequate security for a guy that got shot by somebody else in the parking lot when he was there to meet somebody to buy a laptop or something from Craigslist. And that was CVS's fault. I don't know. I don't think the guy even went into CVS.
Nope, never did.
So I'd be interested in more data on that, but I think it may be one of those things that we just don't have access to the information, because jury information is generally not made public for valid reasons. I'm not criticizing that, but that's a reality. And it's also another similar reality is that these, and we talked about this a little bit, about how these big verdicts are generally not paid. They're paid, 5 cents on the dollar, if that. And I remember when I first started in law school, I didn't realize that somebody could just settle a case after a jury verdict. Like, that wasn't in my mindset. Right. And I suspect that people don't realize that either. And then the settlements are generally confidential. and there are a lot of valid reasons for them to be confidential, but the end result of that is the $1 billion verdict is all over social media, regular media, and the settlement for 500,000 isn't anywhere. So that people think that these numbers are real when they really never come down to dollars and cents.
Understood. Tim and Laura, thank you so much. Patrick, what do you think of the topic in general, nuclear verdicts and social inflation, and the class in particular today?
Yeah, same thing we've been saying. This is kind of a critical topic and an important time to handle it, because we are seeing these things grow more and more. And I appreciate Laura touching in on this idea again, that even though the amount of money that gets reported is huge and beyond most of our understanding of money, I can't fathom having $500 million in front of me, or those sorts of $20 million in front of me. Although if anybody wants to make that happen, I'll send you my address, and you guys go ahead. Large bills, small bills, doesn't matter. Bitcoin, I don't care. But the fact of it is, we see these things reported, and you see these huge dollar amounts with these billboard lawyers, and in truth, that's not how much money that ends up going into the pocket of the individual person that was harmed. That's not how much money that the defendant ends up actually paying out. Even if you do have punitive damages of a huge amount, those things can get cut down either by settlement or by appeal or other issues.
A lot of states have limits on those too. So regardless of what the jury awards, then the judge afterwards reduces it to whatever the limit is.
And that may be something that we see more and more of, those tort limitations that come in play. There's issues around that going on in my state in Florida, where there's some additional legislation going on. And I found it interesting that you brought up microplastics and PFAS. That has been in my ear the last couple of years as the next asbestos issue. So, we'll see what those claims look like. And of course, you have those non-attorney spokespersons who are on the television commercials asking everybody if they were, and fill in the blank for any number of things. You could be entitled to substantial compensation, whatever that means. The attorney's boat payment is what that means. But anyway, this is one of those things that I see as something we're not dealing enough with, and honestly, we can't deal too much with it, because we've got as I think it was Chris Brand said here recently in one of our classes that the plaintiffs' attorneys are sharing strategies. They're sharing what's working.
Very much so. Yep.
And from the other side of the coin, it doesn't seem as though, and of course I'm not an attorney and I don't know this from direct experience, it doesn't seem as though the other side is sharing nearly as much what's working from that side. And I don't know if that's true or not.
I think that is true. I think that it's improving, but the plaintiffs are definitely ahead of the defendants on this.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up real quickly on something Laura said about social media and how, has a tendency to feed information that reinforces certain viewpoints. I would just urge anybody to be a consumer of all media and be willing to entertain alternative viewpoints. I think it makes you better informed, and I think it makes you better able to decide any issue or have a better understanding of what's going on. And the reality is in life, a few things are in black and white. There's a lot of nuance. There's shades of gray, and and there's a lot of good there's a lot of good reporting going on out there in our society, and there are a lot of good things that are happening. And
well, and there's also a lot of good information that's available for free.
Yes.
You know, like a lot of these different reports that some of which were touched on the slides about different types of social inflation, different issues like I think, Tim, you had posted about it a few days ago. The Washington Post had a thing on the expectation of the hurricane zones going forward, and how I think they even had a thing where you could put in your zip code to see if you were expected to be in that. I mean, it was Hurricane Laura that did so much destruction in Arkansas. I mean, most of us do not think of Arkansas as being a hurricane-prone location. And, you know, Boston, we're here on the coast. We in the past haven't seen too many. We've gotten remnants, but we haven't really seen the hurricanes themselves. But we were, you know, strongly in that space on the map too. So, and the insurers, I think, are focused a lot on like climate change and its impact, especially. I mean, hurricanes are hugely expensive to everyone. I mean, certainly to insurers, but there are hordes of people that don't have insurance or have a very significant hurricane deductible, or it's all a flooding problem, which isn't covered and they don't have flood insurance. So these are things that we as a country are going to have to figure out, because there's no turning back. We might be able to slow things down, but but I think we're long past being able to reverse any of it. And, you know, just like what we've seen here, we had in February, 5 days where it was 10 below zero one day and then 50 degrees, like within 5 days. I mean,
Right.
Both of which are unusual for February here, but so scary stuff.
Interesting. You cited Hurricane Laura as as part of your thoughts. So I just thought I'd mention that. So, well,
Yes, it's now been retired since Hurricane Laura did so much destruction. The name has been retired from future hurricanes, but
gotcha.
kind of distressing to have a hurricane that you share a name with. But
Well, on that note, I want to thank Laura Gregory and Tim Fletcher, our instructors today, for an amazing font of knowledge and insight and expertise and experience. Thank you so much for helping us navigate the subjects. We really appreciate it. And Patrick, thanks for coming to the after show. Always great to see you here.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Our pleasure.
Thanks, everybody.
On behalf of everybody, this is your host, George, saying take care of yourselves. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.